What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cruel and Unusual Storytime. I am your host, Simon Dexter. And this week we are resuming with more classic creepypastas. Yum! And this week's story was also suggested by our viewer, Jerry Avvenire. I'm still willing to bet I'm not pronouncing that right, but you know who I'm talking about. You know. You know. You want out, kitty? Yes, I do have a cat. She is quite obnoxious. Anyway, unlike last time where I actually kind of knew something about Jeff the Killer before going in, I actually have no idea what I'm getting into here. I've never read it before. I've never heard the synopsis before. This is all brand new, so this will be interesting. So, let's get into this, shall we? Sit back, relax, and let's enjoy Laughing Jack. It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son, James, was playing outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself, mostly. He never had many friends, but he always had a wild imagination. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog Fido. Reeks of originality right there. When I heard what sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I'm not sure who it was he could be talking to. Could he have finally made a friend? Randomly? In our backyard? That's not weird at all. I'm not sure who it... Oh, I already said that. Being a single mom, it's hard for me to always keep an eye on my son, so I decided to go outside and check on him. I always like single parent stories. I don't know why. I liked it in The Sandman a lot. When I went to the backyard, I was a bit confused because James was the only person back there. Was he talking to himself? Well, he did just say he had a wild imagination. I mean, it's not that out of the ballpark for him to be having an imaginary friend conversation. I could have sworn I heard another voice. "James, it's time to come inside," I called out to him. He came inside and sat down at the kitchen table. It was lunchtime, so I decided to make him a turkey sandwich. Ooh, that sounds awesome. "James, who are you talking to out there?" I asked. James looked up for a moment. "I was playing with my new friend," he said, smiling. I poured him some milk and continued to pry, as any good mother would. "Does your new friend have a name? Why didn't you ask him to come have lunch with us?" I asked. Tried to make her not sound like a bitch. That's the first thing that came into my head, but I tried to make her sound like a sweeter mother. Shit, lost my spot again. James stared at me for a moment before replying. "His name is Laughing Jack." Oh. I should have known that. Fun. Imaginary friend stories are always interesting. Sometimes. I was a bit taken back by what he said. "Oh? That's a strange name. What does your friend look like?" I asked him, a bit confused. "He's a clown." "No clown." He has long hair and a big swirly cone nose. He's got long arms and baggy pants with stripy socks, and he always smiles. I realized my son was talking about an imaginary friend. She's not very bright, is she? I suppose it is normal for kids his age to have imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. It's probably just a phase. "Oh, you're in for a ride." The rest of the day went by as per usual, and it was starting to get late, so I put James to bed. I'm sorry if you can hear my clicking. I need it to make the fucking page scroll down. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and made sure to turn on his nightlight before I closed the door. I was pretty tired myself, and I decided to go to bed not long after. I had an awful nightmare. Also, my camera's lagging a bit. I hope that's not sticking to the video. Give me just 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. Turns out if I ever try to scroll on the website, it makes my camera lag up, so I'm sorry if that's been bothersome in the past few episodes, because I didn't notice. So from now on, if I ever need to scroll, I will just stop recording for a second to scroll. Otherwise, I kind of have to leave it as it is, because I'm reading it in one go, and it'll just fuck it up if I just do it all over again. I'm not going to reenact all my reactions. So, hopefully that wasn't too bothersome, and continuing. It was dark, and I was in some kind of run-down amusement park. I've actually had that nightmare before, like, regularly. I was scared, running through an endless field of empty tents, broken-down rides, and abandoned game huts. What kind of amusement park has tents? The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses in the game huts, all with sick grins stitched on their faces. It felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though there wasn't another living thing in sight. Then suddenly I began to hear music play. The sounds of Pop Goes the Weasel. Okay, that's like the only thing I know about Laughing Jack is that's his theme. For whatever reason, his theme, even though it's a song that's existed for years, being played on a squeeze box echoed through the park. I'm pretty sure it's called an accordion. It was hypnotizing. I followed its tune to the circus tent, almost in a trance. I thought I said in a France. I cannot read. In a trance, unable to stop my legs from moving forward. It was pitch black. The only light came from a single spotlight shining on the center of the big top. As I walked toward the light, the music slowed down. I found myself singing along, unable to stop. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chases the weasel. Monkey, though 'twas all in fun. He didn't really write the last part, but you can't help it. It's kind of like... never mind, fuck it. Music stopped right before its climax. Oh, what a dick. And suddenly the lights shot on. The intensity of the lights was practically blinding. All I could see was a small, dark silhouette shuffle towards me. Another one appeared. Another and another. There were dozens of them, all coming toward me. I couldn't move. My legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as the haunting figures drew nearer. As they got closer, I could see they were children! I've said this a lot on this channel, but if you're writing something and you want to add emphasis to your fucking sentences, please use italics. If you write in caps, it makes it sound like shouting, and that is why I shout every single time if I can help it. Unless people are home and my throat hurts, then I of course don't, but you know what I mean. Italics. All I could do was watch as read that already. As I looked at each one, I noticed they were all horribly disfigured and mutilated. Some had cuts all over their bodies. Others were severely burnt. Others were missing limbs, even eyes. The children enveloped me, clawing at my flesh, dragging me to the ground, and tearing inside me. As the children tore me apart and I faded away, all I could hear was laughing. Horrible, awful, evil laughter. Another note, if you really want to turn me off from horror, use the word evil. I don't know why, because every horror movie uses it. For some reason, evil just ticks the wrong box. I think evil, I think like Disney villain, not like horror monster, personally. I woke up the next morning with a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw that a few of James's action figures were positioned, facing me on top of my nightstand. I sighed. James had probably woken up early and put these there. I gathered up the toys and made my way to James' room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I just shrugged and placed the toys back into his toy box and headed out to the living room. A little while later, James woke up and I made him breakfast. He was quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. James, honey, did you put the toys in Mommy's room this morning? His eyes shut up at me for a moment, then quickly glanced back down at his cereal. Laughing Jack did it. I rolled my eyes and responded, "Well, you tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in your room." James nodded and finished up his breakfast, then decided to go play out in the backyard. I went to relax in the living room, and I must have dozed off, because I woke up a couple of hours later. Shit, I need to check on James. I was a bit worried. It had been over 2 hours, and I haven't checked on him. That's unfortunate. I went to step out in the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I was getting nervous, and I called out to him. Again, the caps aren't necessary, but you are actually yelling this time, so that's not too weird, so I'll be nice. James! James, where are you? Then I heard a giggle come from the front yard. I rushed through the gates, around the front of the house. James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked over to him. James, how many times have I told you to stay in the backyard? James, what are you eating? James looked up to me and reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of candies in all colors. This made me very nervous, as it should for anyone. Oh, shit. Dropped something. Oh, well. James, who gave you that candy? James just stared at me, speaking. James! Again. Please tell Mommy where you got the candy. James hung his head and said, Laughing Jack gave it to me. My heart sunk. I kneeled down to look him in the eye. James, I've had enough of this damn Laughing Jack thing. He just started a day ago, you impatient bitch. He is not real! Starting to hurt me. I know I don't have to do it, but it's kind of funny to me. Now, this is a very serious situation, and I need to know who gave you the candy. I could see my son's eyes tear up, but Mama, Laughing Jack did give me the candy. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. James has never lied to me. That's a lie in and of itself. All children learn to lie eventually. What the fuck? It's doing it again. Is it because I'm... Okay, yeah, it's because I was on that page. Never mind. Sorry about that. Shit, I lost my spot. Never lied to me before. Oh, yeah. Children learn to lie at, like, the age of 4, so he's been lying to you before. He doesn't never lie. Where did I go? Found it. But what he's telling me is impossible. I made him spit out the candy, and I throw the rest away. Going into present tense for whatever reason. James appears to be fine. Yeah, why did it go to present tense all of a sudden? Maybe I'm just overreacting. After all, he could have gotten it from Tom and Linda from next door, or Mr. Walker down the street, or the pedophile down the road. Damn it, I wasn't making jokes. I keep losing my spot. Yep, there it is. Either way, I'm going to have to keep a closer eye on James. Then I put James to bed as usual, and decided to go to bed early myself. And, of course, that whole section was done with my mic being cut off. This whole episode has been a technical train wreck, I swear. Suddenly, I was woken up by a loud banging coming from the kitchen. I sprung out of the bed and hurried down the stairs. When I got to the kitchen, I was horrified. Everything on the counters had been thrown on the floor, and our dog Fido hung dead from the light fixture. Impressive. Somewhat. His stomach was cut open and stuffed with candy, the same type that James was eating earlier that day. My shock was quickly broken by a sharp scream coming out of James's room, followed by loud crashes. I quickly grabbed a knife from the drawer and moved up the stairs with the speed that only a mother whose child is in danger could have. Seriously, moms get superpowers when their kids are in danger. It's fucking crazy. I burst through the door and flicked on the lights. Everything in the room was knocked over and tossed on the floor. My poor son ate his bread, crying and shaking with fear. A pool of urine staining the sheets. Reasonable response, kid. No one blames you. No one blames you. I scooped my child up and ran out of the house and went next door to Tom and Linda's house. Luckily, they were still awake. They let me use their phone, and I called the police. It didn't take them long to arrive, and I explained what had happened. They looked at me as if I were crazy. They searched the house, but all they found was a dead dog and 2 trashed rooms. Sorry about that. The officer told me that someone had probably gotten into the house and done this right before making a quick escape when they heard someone coming up the stairs. I knew it wasn't true. All the doors were locked. Someone could have easily gone, or whatever. And none of the windows were open. Whatever was in the house didn't come from outside. So you think. The next day, James stayed inside. I didn't want him to leave my sight. I went to the garage and found his old baby monitor and set it up in his room. If anything comes into his room tonight, I was going to be able to hear it. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife from the drawer and put it on my nightstand. Imaginary friend or not, I'm not letting anything hurt my little boy. That's not really imaginary, is it? Soon enough, night came. I put James to bed. He was afraid, but I promised that I wasn't going to let anything happen to him. I thought it said I fucked, but I'm reading it wrong again. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and turned on the nightlight. Wow, am I blind. Before closing the door, I whispered to him, "Good night, James. I love you." I don't know. I tried to stay up as long as I could, but after a few hours I felt myself drifting off. My baby would be safe for the night, and I needed to sleep. Just as I lay my head on the pillow, I heard a soft noise coming from the baby monitor I had put on my nightstand. At first, it sounded like just like interference, like the kind of radio would make. Sorry. Then it turned into a soft moan. Was James asleep? Then I heard it. The laugh from my nightmare. The horrible laugh. I sprang up from my bed and grabbed the knife from under my pillow. I rushed over to James's room and creaked the door open. I tried the light switch, but it wouldn't come on. Oh, that sucks. I took a step in, and I could feel the warm, thick liquid on my feet. Suddenly, James's nightlight came on, and I could see the absolute horror that laid out in front of me. James's body was nailed up on the wall. That's unfortunate. I kind of liked the kid, to a degree. Nails pierced through his hands and feet, his chest was cut wide open, and his organs hung down to the floor. In these stories, the killers cut them open and drag the organs out. Because I don't think when you open up a body, the organ's first instinct is pop out of the body. I don't know. That's one thing that's always sort of bugged me with these. His eyes and tongue had been removed along with most of his teeth. I was disgusted, as you should be. I could hardly believe this was my baby boy. Then I heard it again. The soft, desperate moan. James was still alive! It's getting annoying now, isn't it? It's annoying for me to read, too. My poor baby, in so much pain, barely clinging to life, I ran across the room and vomited on the floor. Appropriate reaction. But my sickness was interrupted by a horrible cackle coming from behind me. I spun around, and while wiping bile from my mouth... still wiping bile from my mouth. Then out of the shadows emerged the fiend responsible for all this horror. Laughing Jack, his ghost white skin and matted black hair hung down to his shoulders. He had piercing white eyes surrounded by dark black rings. His twisted smile revealed a row of sharp, jagged teeth, and his skin didn't look like skin at all. It almost looked like rubber or plastic. He wore a patchy black and white clown outfit, striped sleeved and socks. Weird. His body itself was grotesque. His long arms hanging down past his waist, and the way he was poised, motherfucker, I cannot read today, made him look almost boneless, like a rag doll. He let out a sickening laugh, as if to let me know he was pleased with my reactions to his work. He then turned around slowly in front of James and began to laugh even more at the horrific sight he had laid out. That was enough to shake me from my horror. I snapped, and I'll let this one go, because this one kind of makes sense for the capitalization. Get away from him, you bastard! I rushed at the monster, raising the knife above my head, and stabbed down at him. As soon as the knife touched him, he disappeared in a cloud of black smoke. The knife passed right through him and pierced James' still beating heart, splashing the warm blood on my face. Should have just kept reading. The ending is right there. No! What have I done? My baby. I killed my baby. I immediately fell to my knees, and I could hear sirens in the distance growing louder. Why are there sirens? My boy, my sweet baby boy. I promised Mommy would protect you, but I failed. I'm sorry, James. I'm so sorry. Police soon arrived to find me in the front of my son, still wielding the knife covered in my baby's blood. Damn, he's actually rather clever. Not bad. This trial was short. Insanity. I placed in the... Wow, what the fuck is this name? Ferropolis? House of the Criminally Insane? I'm not even going to try bothering reading that again. Where I have been the past 2 months. It's not so bad here. The only reason I'm awake now is because someone's playing Pop Goes the Weasel outside my window. I'll talk to the orderlies about it in the morning. And that, everyone, was Laughing Jack. Not too bad, if I must so say. It wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad. Let's start with the positives first. Firstly, I liked the mother character. She was kind of maybe extreme for me at times, but I suppose I've never been a mother, so I really shouldn't be talking, and I'll never be a mother. But yeah, the mom was great, and I like single-parent characters. I don't know why, but they seem to work a bit better in these, because, you know, the story's going to be more about how they care for the child. I really love that in The Sandman, and it worked really good here. Like, you saw, I kind of tried to take it more seriously after she killed her son, just because I felt kind of bad. And the mom had really good emotion, let's put it that way. I really kind of felt she was real, and I felt the son was real. The characters were very well done. I will give them that right off the bat. And Laughing Jack is pretty cool in his own way. He's got some flaws, which I will get to very, very soon, but I liked it. Like, imaginary friends have been done before many, many times, and clowns have been done before many, many times, but I felt he was kind of clever, sort of framing her for the murder he committed, which I liked that. That was cool, and his sort of bleak design was definitely kind of interesting to imagine. There's a picture here, but it's not a good picture, so I couldn't use it as a reference, but in my head, he seems pretty creepy. But yeah, I really liked the characters and the realism and all that. Well, the realism of how they felt and how they sort of were portrayed, and Laughing Jack was cool seeming, but here's what was wrong with this. So, firstly, kind of nothing happened. I know there were people died, but it was just so short. It didn't feel like enough to me. Like, not enough happened for me to really care. Sometimes it works. This time I didn't feel it really worked for me. Like, you could tell I was kind of being silly because I was kind of bored. And, I don't know, I felt they could have added just a bit more, but that's a personal preference, mainly. And as for Laughing Jack, although he was kind of cool, he was also very not original at all. He was just another cackling, crazy, bad guy. And I had that with Jeff last week, and crazy, cackling bad guys are so overdone. So overdone. And my biggest problem with Laughing Jack is, why was he a thing? Like, what's his purpose? I'm sure there's some stories that explain it, but I feel every story should kind of give a purpose to the monster. Otherwise, it's just a monster. And that's scary to some people. I like a little purpose. I like there to be sort of a reason to the madness. Like, this just sort of happened. Why was James chosen by Laughing Jack? Why was he there? What's his deal? Is he a ghost? Is he just a demon? What is his deal? So, that kind of threw me off and made me kind of, eh. Overall, though, it wasn't all that bad. I've definitely read a lot worse. It still was written really well. I will give them that. As you could tell, the capitalization for emphasis really bugged the fuck out of me in this one. But some people just do that. I swore people have told me that you can italicize in the Wikia pages. So I just don't know why people don't do that. Like, does it not transfer over well when you're copying and pasting from Word, or what's the deal? Even then, when I post things to websites, I just re-edit them. It's part of being a writer. You gotta edit your work. But yeah, those were really the only things that bugged me. Like, Jack wasn't all that original, and the capitalization bugged the fuck out of me. It was just a teeny bit uneventful. Just a teeny bit. It wasn't built up enough, I think, is the best way to explain that. I don't feel the horror was built up at all. He was just sort of there. He did things, the end. Like, there was no build up. There was no rise to the action. It was just sort of a thing that happened. But remember, I'm always viewing this in a very English teacher way. I know that's probably a turn off to a lot of you who hate English teachers, but that's sort of how I look at it. I'm looking at it from, not because of exactly the horror, but the horror is very important to me. I look at it from the writing standpoint as well, and trying to find little imperfections there. Otherwise, this is pretty well written. I could have used a little more work, but I give it at least a B-, maybe even a C+. But yeah, so if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe and all that jazz. And be sure to check in on Sunday. I will be doing another video Sunday, and it's going to be fun. Until then, though, I have a date. See you all real soon.